Like what makes you think your values aren't stemming from a healthy place?
Because I have a natural tendency to people please.
That used to be true.
There wasn't an instance this past weekend. My mom called me saying, I need you to come here immediately, But she called me. She needed some support. I could tell. And my reaction was to go.
She guilted you into it without actually asking you. Is that how it went? So she's willing to have you sacrifice so she doesn't have to be found out.
Yeah, I didn't know that was the case, though.
Today, we have a very special guest who has flown in just to be with us, Miss Taylor. And this is so off the cuff and go with the flow. She hasn't even told me what we're talking about yet, so I am so curious. So Taylor, what's on the menu?
Yes. I have a couple of questions. I think they'll
Ooh.
kind of snowball one into the other.
Do we have an outcome? Because that's kind of where we start, with the
Yes.
end in mind. So if this worked out fabulously awesome, our little conversation, what would you get out of that seat with?
A clear outline of my values that I feel confident are stemming from a healthy place.
Awesome. Okay. So a couple of words to the audience so they can tee this up correctly.
Yes.
We always start with the end in mind. My operating principle here is that everything you do and everything you say has to have some sort of an outcome, some sort of a point, or it's either irrelevant, you're just wasting time, or it's damaging to yourself or others. So if you start off with the fact that everything needs to have a goal orientation, it makes it a lot easier. And goals need to be very clearly stipulated. A well-formed outcome, something with details and specificity is very important because otherwise, ask me where I want to go on vacation.
Where do you want to go on vacation?
Well, I don't really, it'd be nice if I could go to some place with a nice beach. I don't really want to go to the Orient or South America. I mean, I could go through a lot of things that it kind of isn't or kind of is. But if I have a well-formed outcome in mind when somebody asks me that question, the answer is Italy for a very long time every year. That's the answer. I think that has enough specificity, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So now that we're clear on a well-formed outcome, that's good. It's interesting that you bring up values. So before I even know what this is all about, I want to make sure that you're clear what a value is. Okay?
Okay.
So what people actually value is what they are willing to exchange time, money, or effort to acquire. So that this isn't your beliefs.
Right.
A belief is different than a value. Your values are what you actually spend time, money, or effort doing or acquiring. And that's how you know what people actually value, regardless of what they say their ideals or their belief is, what they're actually doing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Make sense? Okay. So that's what you want, is to be confirmation that your values are
stemming from a healthy place.
Stemming from a healthy place. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we'll start with the situation. What's the
situation?
Like what makes you think your values aren't stemming from a healthy place?
Because I have a natural tendency to people please.
That used to be true.
Used
Haven't
to be
I
true.
beaten that out of you yet?
Yes, absolutely.
So she's a reformed people pleaser.
Yes, recovered people pleaser.
Okay. But some of that might be sneaking back a little bit.
Well, I want to kind of dig into a little bit the difference between genuinely being generous and people pleasing. Because I do
that's
think
really good.
Generosity is important to me and it is something I want to do, but I don't want to go into
overboard.
The realm of people pleasing.
Okay. That is such a great topic, Taylor, because, and you know who you are, there are lots of people out there who really, may not have gotten to the point where you are, where you want to understand the healthy difference. The people I'm concerned about are the people that are still locked into being people pleasers because it's like you don't even know you're doing it. It's so natural. It's normal to you. Okay. So pay close attention to how she describes this. And if this is you, then take notes. Okay. All right. So tee it up.
Yes.
How do you define being a people pleaser or what you used to do?
What I used to do was, number one, overextend. And I think that's a been a better way for me to feel if I'm people pleasing or not. As I can kind of feel that I'm getting into that. Is this in alignment with my values? Is this going to help this person?
How would you overextend? Like with time, money,
all of it,
effort, compassion, help,
everything,
all of the above, all the above,
support. Okay. Yes, my time, energy, finances, and what you had mentioned in our first NLP training about that feeling of like almost resentment afterwards of like, well, I did
it's
this
flat
for
out
you.
resentment. Oh, yes. That's people pleasers always land in resentment. So if you
Yes.
find yourself walking around being so sweet and so kind and so helpful and so wonderful, and you keep doing all this stuff, and it seems like nobody either appreciates it or is reciprocal. And you just go, and you land in resentment.
Yes.
Every time. Okay.
Yep.
Right.
So that's been a good gauge for me. I can kind of feel those situations where I have felt resentment. And I can start to kind of identify that early on now too.
Nice.
And saying no. I used to just say yes all the time. Sure.
You say no? You actually tell people no? I'm
people
shocked.
Ask you to do
I
something,
say shocked.
Oh, thank you, but I'm okay.
Wow. That's huge.
It's great.
Good for you.
It's
Yes,
really
it is.
nice.
It's freeing, isn't it?
It is.
That one little word, 2 letters. No.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to be mean when you say it.
And people don't hate you. If you say no, it's mind-blowing.
And if they do hate you or they do give you
Yes.
shit, then
Goodbye.
Yeah. Lovely. Oh, that's so good. It sounds like you really got that nailed.
Yes.
I'm so happy.
I think so.
Good job. Okay. So, but now we're back to you're beginning to recognize the resentment earlier on, which is sort of your tip off like, maybe I'm overextended.
It's a little too much.
Yeah, a little too much. Okay. All right. And is this with everybody in general or certain people in particular, or how does that go for you?
Well, I think for the day-to-day typical scenarios, I kind of have that nailed down and solidified.
Okay.
Where my question is really stemming from is that there's always going to be a situation where sometimes you do have to be in service of others.
Frequently.
And not necessarily that's an overextension, but it is just a being in service.
Fact of life. Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
So wondering kind of where is the line between like generosity and service versus overextending and reaching?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's a good place to start then. So let's think of the concept of being generous. I am a firm believer that generosity is a beautiful, awesome trait in a person. I value it highly myself. And I have found, actually as a side note, that in general, people are either tend to be sort of generous on the generous side, or they tend to be kind of on the stingy side.
Yes.
And that is sort of universal. So if they're stingy with their time, they're likely stingy with their money, and they're likely stingy with, right? They just tend that way. Conversely, people who are generous tend to be, sort of big tippers, and they're ready to lend you a hand, or they don't think anything of jumping in, and they tend toward being generous. So that being said, I would certainly all prefer to be on the generous side. Stingy is just rubs me the wrong way.
Me too.
Don't like stingy. So now that we're clear that generosity is probably your better course of action, you have to have some guardrails up, because you certainly can't. And that's the problem with being a people pleaser, of course, is you can't just be generous to everything all the time, everywhere,
constantly.
About everything. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Okay. Now, also a thing to watch out for. If you are tending toward being a generous person, sadly, there are people in the world who they just sniff that out.
Oh, yes.
They literally just sniff it out. It's almost like you have a big target on your chest, it says sucker.
Yeah, it's right here.
And they can't, they can see you coming, all right? Because so we're defining how people are in the world. So we said some people tend toward stingy, some tend toward generous. It's also true that people tend toward being givers, and people also tend toward being takers. And of course, I think they find themselves in the same piles over here. But if somebody tends toward being a taker, they have to, find people like you from whom they can take. And that's, how they move around in the world. So it's great to be generous, but never without guardrails. And your test for that, or your gut feeling for that, has a lot to do with being reciprocal. Okay. Now, if you and I are friends, now we kind of are, you might do something really nice for me, and I will want to be reciprocal of that, not necessarily the same exact thing.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So like if you know that I like, a salad from whatever place, and you just happen to, hey, I was coming by for lunch, thought I'd give you a salad. Oh my God, that's fabulous. You're so awesome. I'd be thrilled. Right? Well, I don't have to run out and give you a salad.
Yes.
I could find some other way to be nice to you, right? Or acknowledge that kindness. But the fact is, it's not just me going, oh yeah, thanks. And you're sitting there going,
well,
at some point over the course of the relationship, maybe not in that specific moment. So the idea of reciprocity is absolutely key to never being a people pleaser. So you begin to develop this notion that you could be very kind, very generous, very giving. And I think it's okay to say that you have, in some form, generally an expectation that there is something coming back your way, that the person cares enough about you to notice what you might like, or notice what you might need, or notice what's important to you too. Because if it's only one way, that's the way you end up in resentment, and that's a deal breaker. You got to punch out of that. Okay, so being generous, yes, but I guess it's when you're in a relationship with anybody, you sort of,
there's give and take. And there's times where you're more of a taker, more of a giver.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you kind of test it out early on, like in the very initial stages. Is that person like thinking to call me as much as I call them? Or are they checking in with me as much as I check in? Just little things. And you kind of build on that to the point where when you have a really good relationship, you never even think about those things again, because it just feels good. It feels comfortable, and you're groovy with it, right? If it's not going that way, it probably hasn't gone that way from the beginning. But we overlooked it.
Yes.
And the way that we overlook it is, we're actually, I say we in the general sense, we are more interested in not being criticized, not having anybody upset. Nobody needs to get crazy or upset. And we want to avoid confrontation at all costs. This really is not me at all.
And I'm identifying with
yes, I know. Well, because that used to be
that used to be true. Yes.
And the point is, a people pleaser can get so focused on those things they're trying to avoid or not have happen, pissing somebody off, that you become oblivious to the transactions going on right in front of you. Yeah. Like you don't even see it. And of course, takers are usually pretty good at giving you just enough so you keep giving. It's like the little people with the bell at Christmas time and the Salvation Army.
Oh yes,
they're just good enough at just annoying the crap out of you enough. Oh yeah, okay, let me put another $1 in. So, was there a specific instance you had in mind with this?
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of thought
and I
so.
think it's gonna. I think also a lot of stuff we talked about in NLP, not particularly with me, but other people in our group, was the dynamic between a couple and then their parents. I know. So I wanted
danger zone.
Where I was like, is this right? Is this wrong? I don't know. So yes, there was an instance this past weekend where, and not that my mom called me saying, I need you to come here immediately, but she called me. She needed some support. I could tell. And my reaction was to go. So
this was emotional support, medical support, physical support?
Probably mostly physical and emotional. Physical more so. They do have a 3-year-old, so they needed some help with...
They needed a babysitter?
Partially, yes.
And you had to travel how far?
4 hours.
Hang on. We may need to rewind this, Zach. I want to make sure I heard this clearly. So, there you are in your life having a great time.
Yes.
Your mom calls, has some issue with the 3-year-old who is her
son. Not an issue with him, but just she has other stuff going on, and she
with
needed,
her son.
Yes.
Who's 3?
Yes.
Your mom's been a busy girl.
Well, she was young. They tried for a long time. This is our miracle baby. So.
Okay. All right. And then she actually thinks it would be okay to ask you to drive 4 hours out of your life down the highway to go babysit. Have I got that?
Well, she didn't ask.
Oh, she didn't even ask. She sort of subtly put some guilt on you that she needed the help and needed a resource. How did that go exactly?
Yeah. So, my stepdad was having a little bit of a problem with drinking, and so she needed to take care of him, and she didn't have anyone to take care of her.
Do they not have babysitters in her city?
She does have a nanny, but the nanny also has a family and could not help out.
Do we have babysitters as needed?
Yes.
PRN.
Yes. I understand that part of it. I do also understand, like, probably not wanting to have a third party in the house. Seeing that would probably feel like
What to whom?
Well, if I was a babysitter and I showed up and I saw that dynamic, I'd be like, what is going on here? You guys are crazy.
She's not paid to have a decision, an opinion. She's paid
That's
to
true.
babysit the child.
Yeah.
And she could go in the kid's room and stay there for whatever needed to be done, or take him out and play, and there's all kinds of options.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically she guilted you into it without actually asking you. Is that how it went?
I don't think so, but that was
How did you get the idea you were supposed to go in your car and drive 4 hours to do this? How did you get that idea? Like, I have a full tank of gas. I just need to use it up.
Yeah, it sounded like she needed help. Like she
made it sound like she needed help. And so she was the bird with the broken wing going, help me, without actually saying, could you come?
I'm having a really hard time seeing it like that.
Okay. Well, she didn't say the words.
No, she was just kind of telling me what was going on.
That would be overt.
Yeah.
So that was covert manipulation is what we call that. Okay. So if I'm sitting here, Taylor, and I take a sip of water and it goes down the wrong pipe, and I start going, I can't breathe. Are you just going to sit there?
No.
Do I have to ask you, would you please come over here and give me the Heimlich maneuver or something?
No.
Now, refer to our podcast on trauma bonding.
Yeah.
That might be helpful.
Yes.
All right. So, listen, I want you to love your mom like crazy. I want you to respect her and care about her deeply. I do not want her to be able to manipulate you. Is that fair?
I think it's fair.
Oh, good. Okay, because I think so too. Now, understand she's doing the best she knows how to do. Understand several things about your mom. She is doing the best she knows how to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to ding her for that. Also, this business of her being with your stepdad, who apparently has some issues with alcohol, that is, she has the relationship exactly the way she wants it.
Yep.
Because you also know from the NLP training that who has all the power in a relationship?
The woman.
The girls. She who has the boobs has the power. It doesn't mean that it's a healthy relationship necessarily. But whatever it is what she wants. She picked him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She chose to stay with him. And she chose to make a baby with him.
Yes.
All of those were her choices.
Yes.
And then to continue to raise the baby with him.
Yes.
So nobody had a gun to her head. These were all her choices.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, are those the choices you and I might make? Well, probably not.
Nope.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But she has a right to make her choices.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think it would be fine for you to accept that choice that she's made, even respect it, at some level, even though you wish better for her or probably had a different idea what she could do. But it's mostly still a free country. So, you're entitled to do that if that's what you want to do. Now, what she's not entitled to do, Taylor, is make you responsible for her choices. Now, if you happen to live like down the street, okay, well, maybe I could say, hey, would you mind coming over for an hour or two? Okay, that's within bounds.
Yeah.
But driving 4 hours away from your house? No. And not being direct about it and asking, she's just there with the broken wing. Do you see that?
I see it.
Okay, good. That's all you need to do. Just see it for now, because a lot of this will be just stuff, like the NLP training. You just kind of let it kick around, and you kind of reheat it and bring it out again and
yes,
take a look at it. So I don't believe your mom has any purposeful ill intention toward you. So we're not saying that.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that she just doesn't see. It's like it's really not in her awareness. She's so wrapped up in what she's going through that it isn't, your needs and priorities aren't as much in her awareness as her own.
That's true.
And that accounts for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, at the end of the day, we all have to be responsible for what we do and don't do and what we accept and don't accept. So if you have somebody in your life, and a lot of people do, who maybe has this similar issue where because of what they're going through, or, their maturity level, or their childhood, or, whatever the heck, they don't have a capacity to embrace what we call a dovetail outcome when they're dealing with other people. A dovetail outcome is where I get my needs met and you get your needs met. That it's mutual. Because this was not mutual.
No.
Not in any way.
The way I saw, kind of like you were saying, with like if it was reciprocation, if something ever happened to me, she would do the same. Now, I know this dynamic is very different. It's a parent and a child. Personally, if I was a parent, I would not do that.
Right. And see, that's part of your tip-off too. If you could see yourself in her shoes and go, God, I wouldn't call my kid. I'm sorry. I'd go through, every nanny on care.com before I'd, it'd have to be pretty drastic. Now, if it was really, really drastic, like life and death, well, sure, I wouldn't hesitate saying go. That's absolutely fine. But this was a sort of predictable circumstance she found herself in because of your stepdad's issue.
Yeah, this was an issue when I was a child, like when I was like 12. It hasn't really been an issue until recent. Again,
and this is with her or him?
Him. He has like PTSD from working in a child care unit. So like, logically, I understand that. So he has. Wait.
Back up a minute. That just hit my brain. He has PTSD from working in
like a child emergency care unit in the hospital and seeing children like pass away. Okay.
And so his ability to deal with, I don't know, a 3-year-old, not high. A 3-year-old who's acting out issues or whatever.
Yeah, the 3-year-old is acting out. And yeah.
Okay. So
yes.
Understandable how that would be an issue. But again, I said predictable. Might have been under wraps for a while.
Yeah.
But if you have somebody with PTSD in that particular situation who has a young child, I mean, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
1 + 2 = 3.
I don't disagree with you on that.
Okay. So again, this is not out of the blue, oh my God, what a shock. I just want you to see that this was pretty, like if you were a betting girl, you could have bet a lot of money that was going to happen again. Especially with a 3-year-old, for God's sakes. They're awful cute. But if they're just adorable at 3, actually. But if they're not being parented correctly, they can be a nightmare. And I have a strange suspicion this child is not being parented well.
Yeah, that's what's happening.
Okay. Bada bing. So, if you were to be really helpful to your mom, besides running down there to babysit, what do you think you would do? Really helpful to her.
So I have tried in the past to, like, my answer was you should leave him and that should be the end of this. And that has not worked.
Well, that's certainly an option.
Yeah.
But in terms of maybe less in-your-face options.
So my thought was, I will go and help you get him to help.
How about options? This is just, I'm teeing this up. How about are there any options you could think of suggesting to her that would not involve
Driving.
you personally?
Yeah. So the trauma bond thing is probably pretty spot on now that you're saying it.
Well, she could listen to our trauma bond podcast. Good. Okay, that's
Yes.
one. I'll give you that one.
Yeah. I mean, my advice to her, I don't know, would be reciprocated, which is why I
don't care if she does it. I'm just
or not reciprocated, not
not
received. Sorry.
I'm just wondering what's running around in your head. That's the only topic I'm on.
This was the only
that was it.
Solution I had was to go. In my head.
No, I understand that. I'm asking for future. This is a genius conversation. By the way, reminder, genius thinking or genius conversations means you are only focused on what could be or what's next, as opposed to intellectual thinking or intellect, which is noticing what is or what was and usually analyzing it. So notice that's what Taylor's doing. So we're having a genius conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So from now
yeah,
forward,
got it.
if you were to think of options, suggestions, alternatives, ideas that you could give your mom that don't involve you personally,
yeah,
what would some of those be?
Well, getting him to where he needs to be would be like
which him, the child or the husband?
The husband, my stepdad. Yeah, getting my stepdad into somewhere where he can actually get help would probably be like.
Are they unfamiliar with alcohol treatment programs or PTSD programs?
Oh, he just went through. Well, he's been going through a PTSD program, which has not obviously been working.
Well. Okay.
And he just went to an inpatient facility, and now he's in an outpatient program. So, but that was a very fast.
It kind of is.
Turnaround, yeah.
Okay. Well, you could suggest that, certainly,
yeah.
or maybe...
Or a stronger alternative.
Right, or maybe some other alternatives. Okay, so that's one. The podcast, that's two.
Yes, that's true. Leaving, but...
Yes, but I was asking for not... That's totally an option you could suggest, but that's a little more interface.
Yeah.
What else? So notice when you're sort of compulsively trying to help and you're outside the lane, you're not in your lane, it's really hard to see it any other way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Except the road you're on. There's the white line. I'm on it. Okay. So if we just take a step back emotionally for a minute and realize there are always options.
Mm-hmm.
Some of which may be better than others, but there are more than just those. Okay. For example, if the 3-year-old is wildly out of control, I'm just taking your word for it.
Yeah.
Then there are any number of outstanding parenting resources, aren't there?
Yes.
There are more podcasts than she could possibly listen to. There are excellent books. There are seminars. There's classes. There are, everywhere.
Yeah.
Like from stacked here to the moon, probably, on resources for parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not saying all of them are great, but, it sounds like pretty much most of them would be better than what's going on now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is she in Al-Anon?
What do you mean?
Is she in Al-Anon?
I'm not sure what that means.
Okay. If you're an alcoholic, you go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Sorry, it's the group for parents, siblings, wives, husbands. It's the family support group. What do they call that, Zach? I just slipped my mind. Anyway, people will know. It's very common. It's a good resource. So there's plenty of places you can go if you have an alcoholic in the family who's problematic to learn how to deal with it. Has she done any of those?
No. Yeah.
Okay, that would be really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Then if she doesn't know how easy it is to find people on care.com for babysitting and nannying, you can't just, if you have a kid, especially one that's a challenge, you can't just have one resource. That's silly.
Yeah.
That's just silly. Okay? Because what if the bus hit the caregiver, then you've
Yeah.
got nothing. So you have to have backups, redundant systems. So that's an option. Is that sounding more promising?
Yes.
Okay. So the fact is, if I had to bet, I would bet your mom knows about a lot of these and maybe some others,
Mm-hmm.
but she's not choosing to avail herself. That's true. She hasn't done them.
Yeah.
Right? So if you kind of know some other alternatives or a different way to do it or something that might work better, but you choose not to, that's something to think about. Wouldn't you say?
I would say so.
Good. Maybe one of those things that just needs to percolate a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and it's true of a lot of people's parents, Taylor, that they never really glommed on to really good parenting. That's true of a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's not a unique situation. But now that you're a grown woman and you're evolving and you're opening your awareness and improving your skills and resources, it's okay what your mom's doing. She's not a bad person. Like
Yeah.
everybody else, she's doing the very best. I mean, don't you do the best you know how to do?
Exactly.
You can't do better than that, can you? No. Well, neither can she. So this is about accepting her where she is and how she is and loving the heck out of her, while at the same time engaging only in ways that are, reasonably healthy. They don't have to be perfect, but reasonably healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying 4 hours drive outside the lines.
Not reasonable.
Not reasonable. No. I mean, if it was, like I said, if it was life and death, sure. But all she did was fail to get a second care provider or a neighbor or somebody from church or her friend. I mean, God, has she got no resources there? Nobody at all she knows or is close to or socializes with or... No?
To lean on in that manner? Probably not.
Oh, so what's taking care of a 3-year-old?
I think it's more so like someone has to see you in that state too, that you don't know.
So you're saying that it would be more important to her to not be found out.
Yeah.
So she's willing to have you sacrifice so she doesn't have to be found out. Which tells you this is where she needs the help. She's not willing to accept the reality of her situation.
No.
That's where she needs the help. So you saying, no, I can't come down, but let's talk about what else you could do. Let's walk through what that looks like. Because I don't know, maybe she's a people pleaser herself. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But if she is, then that would be like torture, wouldn't it? Because the amount of criticism that would come her way, so she thinks, would be ginormous. So what do you know now? This is interesting. What do you know now about being a people pleaser when you stop being a people pleaser because you don't give a shit so much about what other people think or how much they might criticize you, because screw them.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about that now? How has that helped you?
You tend to act from like what you need versus what others need.
Right.
Without the pressure of what are they going to think about it.
So how has that helped you to not have that pressure?
I mean, I'm happier. I do things that I want to do, which is nice. I'm much happier.
Right. Do you suppose your mom would like that awareness?
Yes.
I'm thinking, yeah. I'm thinking that's kind of a big yes. No, I don't know if she would take it in, but you're now the exact right and perfect person to help her learn that, aren't you?
Yes.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
No, that costs
please?
extra. Where's our cash machine?
Do you guys accept Apple Pay?
You bet.
So, maybe this is too where I'm like moving into that people pleaser mode, but I'm obviously I'm trying to put myself in what I would do in her position.
Oh, I don't know if you can though.
Yeah,
Because you're not living her life.
No.
You
I
haven't made her
those
decisions.
choices.
No.
Mhm.
And you also, I'm just taking a wild guess here, but you probably have a higher level of maturity and self-awareness. And there's quite a lot going on that's different for you. So I don't know that you can actually put yourself in that situation.
So if you were in a situation where, I don't know, something happened, you say married somebody and found out after the fact, after you started a family, maybe something happened and they were an addict or had a problem. Like, to what extent, like, obviously you want to support your husband. And I know
not under all conditions.
And I agree with that. But especially when there's like a child involved, like
then you should double down and do everything you possibly can that you or any other 6 people know to try and fix it if it's broken. But at the end of the day, a lot of times you're not doing the kid any favor by living in a chaotic, dysfunctional kind of a house. If the 2 humans who made the kid cannot be, reasonably kind and pleasant to each other, regardless of what they might personally feel about each other, they can't be reasonably kind and respectful and pleasant to each other. Just be nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And try to keep the things like alcohol or whatever the other issues are as much out of the kid's way as possible. Then you have a fairly good shot at doing okay. But as you were about to put yourself in her situation, what was your point?
Well, I was trying to navigate the situation for her, like thinking in her shoes, to what extent should she be supporting her husband? And
is he an alcoholic?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that situation, your obligation only runs so far.
Mm-hmm.
An alcoholic or a drug, any addiction, by definition, they are putting the thing they're addicted to over ahead of her, which automatically, in my view, breaks the wedding vow. So he broke the vow. I don't think it's reasonable or intended that the person who's the victim of that circumstance just stays in to continue the abuse. Even Mother Teresa, who told us, love and keep loving and do, people are bad, do good anyway and all that. She didn't say, if they're trying to kill you or, there were limits to how you're supposed to be loving and giving. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, she has the right to make the choice to stay in that situation, but she has to realize she's also making the child stay in that situation.
Yeah.
And we know there's all kinds of things we know about people who grow up in an alcoholic family. One, they're more likely to marry alcoholics themselves and have alcoholism as an issue and so on and so forth. So she's not seeing this clearly, for sure.
No.
So another option, we might have another solution for her. Go get help. Go talk to a professional.
Yeah.
To sort this out. She's in over her head.
Oh, 100%.
And she's not doing much about it except, come help me. That seems to be her go-to, right? So she's not availing herself of any of these other options we've talked about, which she really needs to. Needs to, doesn't have to.
Yeah.
She could live the whole rest of her life exactly the way she has it now. Sadly, I don't think it's going to turn out well for the 3-year-old.
Yeah.
But see, sometimes we make choices that have lifelong implications. And making a baby with an alcoholic certainly is one of those.
Yeah.
So, was that the follow-up question? So you were about to put yourself in her shoes. Okay, did we get back to that?
Yeah, no, that helped.
I don't know.
I was just trying to see it from a different perspective because like I said, my go-to growing up was always like, well, if that happens, you should just leave and that's it.
That's often a great option, but a lot of times people don't take that option.
Yeah.
But it's like anything else. Look, you can choose anything you want. You have to be completely willing to accept the consequences of that choice. Mm-hmm. Go nuts. But then don't complain when you chose that this happens.
Yeah.
Especially if it's very predictable. Because that's both stew and pid.
Well, that helped a little bit.
A little bit, I know. All right. So in terms of how you manage mom, have you thought about the fact you actually have to manage mom?
Yeah, yes.
Good.
I have.
So what is managing mom in the best way for both of you that considers both of you? What does that look like?
This is where I was having and like am still having a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do, and it was reiterated, obviously, and I understand what you're saying. It's just going to be a vicious cycle. But my help was more effective when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
So going gives me a little bit more control over the situation.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But I also don't want to be in that position of being manipulated.
You were. Flat out. And then what is it exactly you want control of? I'm curious. Because you're not...
Everything.
Oh, well,
No.
that would be in your Barbie dream house world. That doesn't happen in reality. So you can't, let's be real, you can't have control over the stepdad.
No.
Zero, right?
Right.
Minimal control over the 3-year-old, but that's in the moment.
Yeah, that's only
That's
when I'm there.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's not terribly effective or worth the effort.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's control over mom. Exactly how much control over mom did you hallucinate that you had?
A lot.
Oh,
my thought
it was a big hallucination.
Yeah, I can control her and she can control him, so then everything would get fixed.
Do you think she can control him?
I think she can try to manage him and sometimes is successful. Right. She currently can. She probably could if
she's not. What is she managing exactly?
My stepdad?
No. What about him is she managing?
Oh.
Does she control his drinking too much?
She tries to, but no,
No.
not successfully.
Okay, well, that trying doesn't. No, the answer is no, she does not.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not controlling his drinking. Does she control his acting out? Not so much.
Yeah.
What exactly do you think she can control?
I mean, she got him to go to get help.
Once.
Yeah.
Yes?
Once.
How did I know that? Once. Now, that's because he was probably tired of hearing her bitch. The thing is, if you read up on it, most addicts need to actually end up going through some kind of a program multiple times.
This is where my fear is coming from.
Don't embrace the fear.
Well, no, not that I'm, well, my fear is more of how to navigate the situation in the future because I feel like it's going to happen again.
Oh, let's count on it. Let's look at, okay, here's the future. Ready? We're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's the future.
Mm-hmm.
From now until dead, that's probably going to be how it goes.
Yeah.
Without any changes. Like, you could bank on that. He's, and of course a miracle could always happen or, who knows. But in all likelihood, he is not going to give up drinking. How much he drinks, when he drinks, where he drinks, or how much he drinks.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to him when he drinks. That's not going to change. In fact, it'll probably get worse over time. That's the predictable.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have any control over that now, and she will have less and less control in the future. You have zero control over him, and now I'm back to you. Exactly what kind of control do you think you have on your mom? Did she make him go to rehab because you told her to or made her?
No.
No. So what change in her behavior are you thinking you are in control of by running down there in person 4 hours?
In my mind, I was...
In your hallucination.
In my hallucinations, yes, it was that I got her to get him there faster. By one, her support system, but also just taking care of the kid and having someone to manage that.
So that's kind of what you were doing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that certainly is a step in the right direction for them. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That's true. there still were other ways for her to accomplish that didn't involve you.
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, and I'm sure you can flash forward in your mind and imagine this, as a parent, you don't ever want to be a burden on your kids.
Yeah.
You just don't. My parents were masterful at that concept. They structured their lives and did everything humanly possible to make absolutely certain to the best of their ability that they were never going to be a burden on their kids. And I am so respectful of that because that's pretty rare. I was very blessed. That's pretty darn rare. So even to their detriment, when they would have much rather had us involved or had
Yes.
much preferred, but they, that's about being other-centered.
Mm-hmm.
The real definition of love that we talked about in the training, love isn't about how you feel. It's about how you make the other person feel. So it turns out in reality, if we really look at it under the microscope, there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do with your mom. You had this one example where you think that you might have influenced her positively to make this happen sooner, and maybe that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that's going to happen again?
No.
So every time he goes in and fails, that's usually how it goes, the repetitive cycle. Then it gets harder to make him go in the next time.
Mm-hmm.
They often say that alcoholics have to hit rock bottom and drug addicts, before they
Make it
have a real change in their head about how this all goes. Often that's true of the spouses. Whatever rock bottom is for her. She hasn't hit it yet.
Be really nice if that was rock bottom.
It would be super duper, but as most people who struggle with this problem will tell you, the fun hadn't even started yet.
Yeah.
So what we don't want to have you do is be in an illusion anymore. I would love for you to see this clear-eyed, see it very maturely and lovingly, very, very lovingly, generously loving, but still in your lane.
Yes.
Okay? Because her choices, her decisions are not yours.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. And you want to make sure that you're not in a daughter pattern. Would you like to tell all the nice people out there what a daughter pattern is?
What I was afraid of.
Is she speaking right into this one?
This one.
Okay, that's your spot. Just look right in there and tell them what you know.
What I can remember.
I'll help you.
Thank you. Perfect. Daughter pattern with your mother. You tend to actually fall into more of a parenting role, and being your support system for your parent in a way that they should be for you.
Well, actually, that's close, but not quite, because that's actually what you're doing.
Okay.
A daughter pattern is where the opinions, attitudes, and pressures, like the approval and the opinions of your mom, in this case, could be either parent, could be sibling, could be a number of people, but usually it's mom. So it's so important for you to get your mom's approval and validation that you turn yourself into a human pretzel. And if you're in a love relationship with a guy, then you're often more of a daughter than you are a wife. Makes sense?
Yes.
Now it's coming back to you now. I see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
It's coming back.
So in that situation where you're comparing like daughter pattern, wife pattern, getting your mom's approval means actually more to you than getting your husband's approval. It has more leverage on you. So her being upset with you, and that isn't a people pleaser thing. That's a daughter pattern. So her being upset with you or critical of you or not synced up with you right discombobulates you. If your husband does the same thing, you're like, whatever. It doesn't hit you the same.
Yeah.
So it's his approval you should be chasing. It's his acknowledgement. It's his validation. His opinions should matter more to you than anybody's actually, but especially more than your mommy's. And I say that sarcastically, mommy.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the thing. Now, even though that may not be an issue in your relationship necessarily. Oh, I got to smile. Well, okay. I'm saving
the best for last.
That could be okay. We'll save the best for last. All right. But it is that your mom's approval of your decisions to help her matters a lot. If you were just looking at it from your your own internal approval, your gut check, is this good for me? Factoring that in. And in this one instance, maybe not, but this is not a standalone instant, and it won't be the last.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So even though I might give it to you that you did the right thing to really show support, because this was a big step in the right direction for them. That's cool. That's nice. But there's a lot of little ones before that, and there's probably a lot after that. So at some point, you got to get
out of that,
the boundary back up.
Yes, right. That's really what I wanted.
Yes. Okay. All right. So are we saving the best for last now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I know this is where I knew I had a hunch. I was not acting in my own best interest. Because
you are a smart girl.
Well, I have a good partner in life.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not think I should go.
Well, there's the... so you had a direct...
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you had a direct choice between being in the daughter pattern or being in the wife pattern, and you picked daughter. Yep. Now, why did he say that you shouldn't go?
For everything you said here.
Because he was seeing the repetitive pattern of it, and this is just one more on the stack.
Yes, he was looking at it as repetitive, where I was like, oh, well, that's the past. It's been so long. It's, if it happens again, that's a different conversation. But right now, this needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So exactly how pissed was he? He was pretty pissed.
We were both very, oh my gosh. Yes. So that was like my first indicator to be like, whoa, maybe this isn't the right decision. And maybe I need to think about this a little bit more. But I still felt like it was the most useful thing to do in that situation.
For your mom. Clearly not for you.
I may have altered my reality or perception of that to be like, well...
Really? I'm so shocked. Oh, my
crazy?
God.
To say that if my family was taken care of, then...
Oh, you went there. Wow.
Yeah.
That's what we call a giant justification. Well done.
Thanks.
Well done. All right. So in this conversation
with myself,
with your partner, actually,
that.
Did you happen to tee up anything like, okay, well, this would be the dovetail outcome again. So let's just hypothetically say that I decide to go. What would you need, honey, to see, feel, or hear that would make you comfortable with that? Like, under what conditions would it be more palatable to you or more comfortable to you? Because I think there's an answer to that. But yes. I bet you didn't ask it.
I didn't ask it in the moment. We talked about it yesterday. We talked about it a lot since, but yes.
Okay.
Yes,
and what was the answer to the question?
Kind of like what we said here, that his biggest concern is my safety and well-being.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we expect nothing less.
Yes. And
good job, whoever you are.
And he supports me supporting my family, but not at the detriment of my well-being.
God, that's so crystal clear. What is he, a genius?
He's very smart.
He's a freaking genius.
Very smart. But it would need to be, if it happens again, which obviously
I think we can
predictable outcome. There needs to be a conversation about how we're supporting them. So pretty much everything we said here.
Shocking.
I know.
Just shocking. But see, you knew most of that. Aren't you happy about that? But the problem is making it comfy.
Yeah, it's not comfortable.
Well, disillusionment is often uncomfortable. How well I know, disillusionment is often very uncomfortable.
Yes.
It definitely takes some warming up. But what's on the other side of disillusionment is awesome. It's called freedom. Because really, in this illusion you have about mom, daughter, helping family, it's a bit of an illusion or delusion that you're doing it well. or that it can be done well.
Yeah.
You're just not in a situation where, you have a lot of options.
Mm-hmm.
So wrapping your head around who your mom really is, what her situation really is, would help a lot. Because if you keep wanting to make the fantasy match what's going on in reality, that's hard. But you don't want to get rid of the fantasy, because that would mean your delusion or your idea of what has been going on gets popped, and disillusionment is your result. So basically you want to ask yourself, just how bad would it be if I had a mom that tended to be a little bit of a taker, wasn't really thinking of me as much as she probably should, and she's married to an alcoholic and isn't raising my brother right? I mean, like, how bad would that be if you could go, okay, there it is. That's as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
That's as bad as it gets,
I mean, I would say it's pretty bad.
Really? According to whom?
I guess I'm looking at it from their perspective.
No, look at it from yours. And bear in mind,
it doesn't really have to have any impact on me.
I bet if we did a quick tally, if people could click somehow, they can't. Don't try it. If you could click while you're watching this and go, yep, that's me, or yep, that's my family, or yep, I know that's my boyfriend, or
yeah.
We'd be flooded, wouldn't we, Zach? We would. This is not unusual at all. In fact, it's really kind of unusual when a mom isn't doing something like this. Actually. So you're in really a almost normal or routine situation. So according to whom do you think it would be so terrible and awful? What if you're just ordinary in this? Like, this is just an ordinary situation. It's not weird. It's not different. It's not unusual. See, when you go into ordinary, magic things happen because you don't have to defend a damn thing. And her life and her choices are not yours.
Yeah, I think that's the problem that I had.
They're not yours. You need to love someone at a distance. You can love them generously, fully, at a little bit more of a distance. So, imagine your mom. Picture your mom. Where is she in space in front of you?
Right here.
Right here. Okay, right here? Okay, open your eyes. Now, what I want you to do is imagine her, really vividly imagine her, all the feelings, all the connections you have with her, but imagine her here. Does that change how you feel about, or how you could feel about her? Does it, what's different when you vividly imagine her out here? There's some space.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like I'm right. It doesn't feel like I'm in her shoes.
And in her energy.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. You don't have to move the camera, Zach. I'm just going to step out. Okay. Okay, you can move the camera if you want. I don't know if you can. All right, so here I am. Okay, so here's the door, everybody. Okay, I'm putting Mom outside the door. Oh, he is going to move it. Okay, so I'm really outside the door. Okay, Taylor, here she is. How different does that feel? Really vividly imagine her over here.
Feels good.
It feels better? How?
It kind of feels like a weight.
A weight is off you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does it feel like you might be able to do more things? I'm not bringing her in.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing her in. I left her out there. Okay, now, since she's out there, I did not bring her back in. Let's say she's across the street. She left the building. She's out across the street. How does that change?
Yeah, the more space, the more I can see a little clearly.
Right. Does it feel freer?
Yes.
Does it put pressure on you the farther away she is, or pressure off of you?
Off.
Does it feel more like you the farther away she is?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is why imagination is so powerful when you want to make changes. It might be useful if when she's on the phone with you or, however that goes, or when you're in her presence, that you kind of use that great imagination of yours and just imagine her however far she needs to be. Usually it's, across the street usually doesn't.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to be in the next county, But someplace where however long this or big the space is has to do with how you feel, free to act, free to move, and just it like brings things into focus.
Mm-hmm.
Because when she's right here,
It feels like I'm her.
there's no way you can get out of that.
Yeah.
You're just consumed by it, right? And it doesn't, repeat this after me, it does not mean
It does not mean
that I'm a bad daughter
that I'm a bad daughter
if I create enough space between my mom and me.
if I create enough space between my mom and me.
Was that okay?
Yeah.
Yes? Say that like you mean it.
Yes.
Okay, you're sure. All right.
I'm having a hard time with that one.
Yeah, I know. That's why I asked you if you meant it. Do you have a tissue, Zach? So you thought you were a bad daughter if you didn't do this. Go ahead and admit it.
Yeah, I didn't know that was the case, though.
Oh, well, that's because these things sneak up on you. And, sometimes it isn't till you get the clarity, Taylor, that you can have this in your awareness.
Yeah.
You with me? So you're doing just fine. This is all just great. So your eyes
Thank
are
you.
leaking. Your eyes are leaking relief.
Yeah.
So let's repeat that again. It does not mean
It does not mean
that I am a bad daughter in any way.
that I'm a bad daughter in any way.
If I love my mom and
If I love my mom and
create enough distance
create enough distance
in my mind,
in my mind.
so it's all in your imagination,
Yeah.
that I can make good decisions
That I can make good decisions
and see things more clearly.
and see things more clearly.
Does that feel a little better?
Yeah, that does.
Okay. Because that's all we're doing,
Yeah.
right? That's one of the tip-offs that you really were in a daughter pattern accidentally. Because you weren't looking at it through your eyes, and certainly not the boyfriend's eyes.
No, it was not.
You were looking at it through her eyes, or what you perceived.
Yeah, as
she
if it
would
was
think.
like my life.
Right. No, and it's not.
No.
It's not. Now, I don't know that she would actually think you were a bad daughter if you didn't come running and do this.
No.
But, I doubt it. But even if she did, doesn't make it true,
Yeah.
does it?
No.
So now it's a good thing you didn't wear eye makeup.
Thank goodness. It would have been a mess.
No, you're doing great. All right. So let that settle in.
Okay.
Okay. Now, close your eyes for a minute. Double check. Just drop down inside. Double check that it's actually okay with you physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually to create whatever imaginary distance you need between you and your mom so that you can see things clearly. You can make quality decisions that incorporates everybody in the mix, not just what she needs, but everybody, including your partner. And double check if that's still okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
So if we looked at parts of you, like spiritually,
Mhm.
intellectually, physically, emotionally, do any parts of you have any objection to doing that? And if they do, give it a voice and let me know.
I think emotional.
Emotional a little bit? Okay. Well, let's first of all thank your unconscious mind for helping, because that's always what it's trying to do, right?
Mhm.
So drop down inside and ask your unconscious mind silently to yourself if it would be willing to consider 3 creative options that you may not be aware of now. That'll just sort of come to you. Your conscious mind does that for you. That for you work equally well or way better than doing things with your mom the way you used to, where you just run down at the drop of a hat, spend all kinds of time, and kind of everything else blurs from your awareness. So ask your unconscious mind to come up with alternatives that still make you feel like a good daughter, still allow you to love your mother, care very much about what's happening to her, and certainly be generously helpful where you can, but don't have you bending over being a people pleaser, don't have you doing things that aren't in your best interest, and don't have you wasting time. So would that be okay with your unconscious mind? If you did that? Okay. Now, let's go back to the spiritual, intellectual, physical, and emotional. Check and do a little scan. Is it okay with all 4 of those parts? That your unconscious mind now comes up with whatever those 3 creative options are that give you all of the benefits of trying to be a good daughter, helping your mom, but without all the limitations and issues that existed. In fact, you could even be more of a help, and they also involve you accomplishing everyone's objectives, not just hers. Is it still the emotional part that has any problem with that? Double check. If it does, that's okay. Just give it a voice. Let me know.
No.
Not really? It's okay?
Yeah.
All right. Now, as you picture all 4 of those parts, how do you picture them? Blobs, shapes, colors?
It's rectangles.
Rectangles. Are they different colors?
Yes.
Good. What color is the emotional one?
Yellow.
Oh, yellow. And is it bigger by any chance than the other 3?
No,
Same size?
Same size.
Is it more intense in color?
Yeah.
Okay. So can we play with that for just a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for a lot of people, their emotional part has a little too much power. Just a little bit too much power. So let's try this to see if that works for you. So first thing I want you to do with your emotional rectangle is I want you to dim the yellow. So if it's a really, really intense yellow, just make it like a buttercream.
Mm-hmm.
Buttercream's really good to eat too, you know. Just a nice.
I like buttercream.
Oh, I do too. Buttercream. Buttercream frosting is the best. So nice buttercream color. Easy. And I want you to shrink it down just a little bit. Okay. And I want you to make it smaller than the other 3. And are they sort of in a row, or there's some...
They're in a row.
Behind each other, or all lined up?
All in a line.
In a line. Okay. So can you take the yellow buttercream rectangle and move it to the back?
Mm-hmm.
It's smaller. We're moving it to the back. Yes? Okay. What color is your spiritual rectangle?
The rest don't really have colors.
Oh, we'll find the spiritual one and give it a color.
Okay.
What does it have?
Light orange.
Oh, light orange. Okay. So is it the same size as the other 3?
Yes.
Okay. Let's make it like 3 times as big. Spiritual thing, 3 times as big. Gigantic. And would it be okay to you to make it an intense bright orange?
Mm-hmm.
You want it to be like a pumpkin orange, or do you want it to be a emergency flasher orange? Or
Pumpkin
a
orange.
pumpkin orange. Okay. So it's a beautiful, deep pumpkin orange.
Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous fall color. And it's 3 times bigger, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Now we put that in front of the physical and intellectual rectangles. Okay, so they're lined up. Spiritual first, physical, intellectual, and then behind that, emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason that we do that is because the intellectual part is not always working to your best advantage. You know, it kind of has a mind of its own, and it does not, in fact, always do what's in our best interest. It just doesn't. So it can't have as much power as the others. Now, the spiritual part, on the other hand, always has your best interest. That's never not true. So that can and should be nice and big and sort of be your North Star guiding light, the one that has the most influence. Now, does that rearranging help at all? Do you like that better?
I do.
Okay. Now have all 4 of those parts take a look at your decision to allow your unconscious mind now to come up with whatever those 3 creative options are that allow you to have distance with your mom, whatever it is you feel you need, and still love her and be generous in helping her, but don't have you in a daughter pattern or doing things too much. Does the spiritual part like that idea?
Yeah.
Does that feel more solid to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, when it's really okay with you to think of it that way, let's do the future pace. So now I want you to imagine I could zoom you forward in time, a few days. And in that time, it's happened. You've got your 3 creative options. Your unconscious mind helped you out. All of a sudden, there's nothing but options around you for how to deal with your mom in ways that are very helpful to her, but don't involve you trying to control her, which I guess we already figured out you can't do anyway. So it's all working much better. What would that look like? Tell me what you picture.
I picture, me and my boyfriend a lot happier.
Yes, okay. So he's happy too. Good.
And I picture my mom and my brother and my stepdad happier too.
Yep, I think that's true. Does this seem easier or harder than what you were doing before?
Easier.
Weirdly, it does,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah, weird how that goes. And does it put pressure on you or take pressure off you?
Take pressure off.
Does it seem more natural?
Yeah.
Does it seem weirdly more giving
Yes.
and more generous and giving in a way? Kind of strange, huh? And is it physically comfortable when you think about it?
Yeah.
Like kind of a relief.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not anxious, it's relaxed. Is all that true?
Yes.
Okay. So imagine that future pace time in the future where it's all going just the way you're imagining it. I want you to really vividly imagine and dial up all those feelings, that relief, that feeling of control, because it's a lot more control than you feel like you have now, I bet.
Yeah.
And everybody's happier and it's all working better and you feel more relief and stronger, less pressure, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Really dial all that up. Step into those feelings completely. They're so abundant, you can't possibly absorb them all. And when it's really true for you, Taylor, that you can really just imagine that happening and access that resource state that way you're feeling now anytime you want, then and only then your eyes will open easily. Until then, they'll stay closed while you do all the stuff you need to do in your head to see it that way. Like you could reach out and touch that anytime you want. And when that's true, your eyes will open easily. Until then, they'll stay closed. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. That's right. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Hi.
Wow. Hi.
Okay. Hi. Okay. So what color is your car?
White.
And what day is today?
Sunday. Is it
Lovely.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
okay.
I
was
freaked
like,
you out,
oh,
didn't
no.
I? Oh, my God. I'm here on the wrong day. Okay. Is it Sunday in Italy, too?
I don't know.
Yes. For a few more hours, anyway. All right. So there you are.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your chin where it is and just look up just a little bit. There you go. Perfect. Now, I want you to go deep inside, and I really, really want you to try and see if you can recreate that feeling of confusion and upset and like you had to do this way for your mom and that was for your only choices and it was really hard. And see if you can recreate that belief that that was really the only way you could do it. Or is it not there or just hard to recreate?
Yeah, it's hard to recreate.
If you try, what happens?
It feels like I'm like reaching at straws.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to force it.
Yeah. And there's nothing there when even if you could reach it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's true?
Mm-hmm.
Super. Do you like that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Is
Yeah, I
that
do.
better?
Yeah.
Is that what you wanted?
Yes.
Then we did it. Yeah. Any questions?
No.
No. And you got what you came for.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Did we leave anything out?
No.
We covered a few more things than you thought, probably.
Yeah. Way more.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Thank you very much for sharing this. This was, I know, very helpful to an awful lot of people, Taylor.
Thank you.
So I think you were very brave. Not everybody can do this, Yeah, really. But you did fabulous. You were terrific and really, really helpful, which is the mission of these podcasts, is to help people, because I've heard myself talk way too much as it is already. All right. So I think we accomplished our objective. We had a mutually inclusive goal there, and I think we nailed it.
I do too.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Stay tuned for next time.